Welcome everyone back to another great edition of Maxin TV. I have a real esteemed guest all the way across the water, Eleanor Manley, who's the co-founder and CTO of Metaspace, a revolutionary technology that is going to combat essentially inappropriate messaging throughout. Eleanor, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really thrilled to get started. And I just find it hilariously hilarious that your last name is Manley.
Yeah, especially in what I do is my work.
Exactly. I find it ironic, but it's great to have you on. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what is Metaspace?
Sure. So, Metaspace is a B2B platform to help companies eradicate sexual harassment. And we do this through three main technologies. So, firstly, a reporting application for employees to report any types of workplace misconduct and whistleblowing. But we specialize obviously in sexual harassment. Secondly, a case management system, which has resolution as in mind. And then lastly, and this is what I specialize in as a data analyst and machine learning engineer, is a natural language processing algorithm to detect sexual harassment as it occurs in real time.
That's unbelievable because I know this is a rant. You would have to be living under a rock to not know that this problem is rampant. And so, one thing that actually was alarming, which you told me off camera, was that supposedly women only report around 2% of sexual harassment. Is that correct?
Yeah, so from the data that we've been able to collect, it's really a minority of individuals who actually come forward. Some numbers even show that it's 99.8% of individuals who don't report sexual harassment. So clearly there's a massive gap between the knowledge of when it's occurring and the actual reporting process. So that's something that we're really trying to bridge together.
Right. So, your system essentially, like, if someone sent an inappropriate message, let's say on LinkedIn, so the system will block it. How exactly? What exactly will it do?
So that's the natural language processing part, which would plug into workplace communications. But the employee reporting application and the case management system are separate. So the reporting application would be found on an individual's phone, and then they can, add screenshots or anything that they find inappropriate. And this could be face-to-face interactions as well. And then the case management system is what the HR side would receive, or the management, whatever the company chooses. And then the natural language processing is what would detect inappropriate messaging.
Got you. So, how did you start with this to begin with? Like, is your background in data? I mean, probably data analytics and things like that. But why specifically this?
Yeah, so my background is in data analytics. I did a master's in it, and my co-founder in cybersecurity. So, we're definitely in the fields, the correct fields for our topic. So we started Metaspace because we realized that sexual harassment was such a rampant problem in workplaces today, and yet there didn't seem to be any resolution in sight. I think because it is such a sensitive topic, individuals fear kind of tackling it. So after lots of interviews and research, we decided that we wanted to come with a very proactive approach, so that wasn't only reactive to sexual harassment cases as they occurred, but also preventative.
Right. So, once you get started, like, I'm sure there was a ton of challenges to do something like this. This doesn't seem like it's the easiest thing to pull off. Obviously, if anyone can pull it off, it's probably you. Just by listening to you for more than 4 seconds, you can realize that you are an absolute genius. Currently, is there anything like this at all? Like, this is a totally new concept?
So there's different reporting applications available, but they tend to be concentrated on the Anglophone market. So you have, whistleblowing reporting. No one tends to specialize in sexual harassment like we do, especially in terms of the natural language processing algorithm that we're bringing to light. And obviously, for us, it was such an important issue that we were specialized in sexual harassment, because sexual harassment is actually the most reports that an employer would receive.
What exactly is whistleblowing reporting exactly?
So there's a new law coming into place in December of this year called the EU Whistleblowing Directive, which states that all EU companies have to have a whistleblowing system, and this whistleblowing system is for all breaches of law, of EU law specifically. So that can be anything from theft, fraud, discrimination, harassment, and sexual harassment.
So essentially, it's how would someone report it? How would someone report it? Is it tech or someone literally going to the HR manager and saying, "Hey, someone did something to me"?
So that's the thing. The problem today is that conventionally, people tend to go to HR or have to go to their manager to report something. And obviously, from the number that we discussed earlier, 99.8% of people don't report. So clearly, these conventional methods aren't actually working, and that's why we want to bring something that's more data focused and tech focused, which also gives individuals the option to be anonymous while submitting their report.
Right. What's interesting is that when I worked for Amazon at one time, and every day they asked us, we have like this little barcode, and before we started every day, they'd ask us one question, and
Hmm.
supposedly it was anonymous. I still think it really was anonymous, but they'd ask you questions such as, what's the communication level of your manager? Do you like your manager or something? And so
Hmm.
rated it from 1 to 10. So what it did was it kept managers essentially on their toes. They had to try even harder to
Yeah.
work better with people. Any data on how much of an increase you would get as far as people actually reporting a problem?
So far, unfortunately, no, and that's one of the reasons why we're getting into the field is because there's a massive kind of gap in data collection when it comes to sexual harassment specifically. Um, like the numbers tend to show that a majority of individuals, both men and women, have experienced sexual harassment at one point in their lives. So this is equivalent to 60% of women and a third of all men. However, more recent research has shown that actually for women it's far higher, and the reason that it's so difficult to collect data on is firstly there doesn't exist a global definition of what sexual harassment is, and so it's difficult for people to actually not only visualize it but say, oh, I'm being sexually harassed. um, so that's why we're also really working towards kind of the educational side of understanding, okay, when does it occur, what are the lines that shouldn't be crossed, and once we are able to kind of define those lines, that's when it becomes a lot easier and you'll see far more reports coming in.
Right. So you mentioned 1/3 of all men
Yeah.
there's sexual harassment. That's alarming and kind of shocking, honestly.
Yeah, it's tends to be unexpected. People don't realize that men also experience sexual harassment. Um, but sexual harassment is a very broad term where lots of things can fit under it. So, for example, being, saying that you're not manly enough, as my last name
Right.
is. So that's a form of sexual harassment because it's making you feel uncomfortable in the workplace, and obviously it's based on your sex. So men and women experience sexual harassment in different ways, and they also perceive sexual harassment in different ways because they have different experiences. So that's why our application is gender neutral. We really want men and women to feel comfortable coming forward.
Right. So your system would essentially allow people to come forward in a much easier way. But there's also like that aspect which we won't go too far into, but automatically flagging it immediately, right? So it's like
Yeah.
two both ways.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously the individual who's experiencing can flag it up, but the goal with our system is that it would be flagged up automatically, and then the individual receiving the inappropriate message would then have to confirm, oh yeah, this does make me feel uncomfortable. So that's kind of why, in our belief, the employee application and the case management system is quite reactive because it's post. It's after the realization that you've been sexually harassed, and then the employer dealing with it, whilst the natural language processing algorithm is actually way before. So it's meant to be preventative and to stop further occurrences.
Right, because from my point of view, playing devil's advocate, it seems to be like that. Picking up on that stuff automatically is really where I would say you have your moat, your non-competitive, your what's the word? A competitive advantage over anyone else. Just playing a devil's advocate, what what would you say to someone who thinks like, oh, why don't I just create something that I'll just put a little messaging system at everyone's desk, and if there's ever a problem, you just put a message in and you recorded it versus something like it seems simple, but I'm sure it's not that simple.
Yeah, I think one of the main difficulties is like this mindset shift that we're trying to work on. So, for example, the reason that people wouldn't just like drop the message if they ever felt uncomfortable is because they don't necessarily acknowledge that what is happening to them is sexual harassment. It tends to have to escalate to a point where the person can't bear it anymore. And what really shocks us is that women are more likely to resign than to report a case of sexual harassment. So that's how bad it is in the sense of not reporting. With the natural language processing algorithm, we're trying to get that mindset to shift actually, so that it doesn't get to the stage where the person has to resign, but rather in the first instances where the person has received a written communication of sexual harassment, that they realize that it's wrong, that it's making them feel uncomfortable, and that they can then feel comfortable and confident that they're supported by their enterprise to report it.
Right. So you obviously seem like you really know what you're doing. Is this the first business that you've been a part of per se at this level?
Yeah, this is the first business that I'm founding.
That's incredible. And so so far, how has it been? Because I know you also have to probably raise money for this, correct?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so we secured our first round at the beginning of this year, which we're very grateful for our
congratulations.
incredible, thank you, our incredible angel investors who are so, so supportive and absolutely brilliant. And to be honest, I know that like Helena, my co-founder, and I have faced challenges, but there's such a demand for a product like this that those challenges don't seem like they're unbearable or that we can't overcome them. On the contrary, it kind of fuels us further to keep on going, because the more individuals we speak to, the more people that we meet, the more we realize that this is a product that's so needed in the market. And also, fortunately for us, with the whistleblowing directive, it's not only an ethical issue today of that individuals want to solve, but now it's a legal issue that companies have to have a reporting system like ours.
Right. And so is there anything like that in the US? Meaning, or in the US is it also the same way? Like you have to report something?
Not that I'm familiar with. I could be
Okay.
wrong, but I do think that the EU and the US do parallel each other in legal norms. So if there isn't one, there probably one coming in the next couple of years.
Right. And for those watching, where are you located?
In Madrid. Yeah,
In Madrid,
Madrid,
right.
Spain.
Perfect. And okay. So where do you see the like I assume like if you go to any company, it seems to be like this would be a slam dunk. Like every company would want to be all over this thing. Have you faced any challenges at this point, or has it been just, easy gliding?
Yeah, I definitely think the main challenge is some companies don't like, as we've been talking about, um, sexual harassment is hidden. It really is because we just don't have the data on it. People don't report it, so HR departments don't see it. So when we go into a company and tell them, every company has sexual harassment cases. It's not about whether they do or not. They do, and obviously, if it's been hidden for so long, so many companies think, "Oh no, we don't have a problem." So it's actually trying to get them to understand that, yeah, that they are experiencing sexual harassment. They just might not be seeing it yet, and the benefits both for them as an employer. So, financially, companies are losing a lot of money when it comes to sexual harassment because productivity goes down, absenteeism goes up, and managerial time is lost trying to deal with sexual harassment cases. A recent study showed that companies like the largest companies in the world were losing between 0.4 and 1.4 billion each year in market value linked directly to sexual harassment. So, it's a huge financial problem as well. So we're trying to show them these numbers to say that, okay, if ethically it's not something that interests you, then financially it should. And so that's kind of, if we go in with that, then companies do tend to then understand a bit better of how they can improve. And then from an employee perspective, obviously the well-being is so important to know that they're protected by their company.
Yeah, and tell me if I'm wrong, but first of all, that's alarming that they link $1.4 billion a year in losses due to sexual harassment.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it's
insane. So
huge.
that
And these
that
are
is
obviously the biggest companies. It's the companies in the top quintile. So obviously, like as companies get smaller, that would be a smaller number. But companies are losing a lot of money due to a loss in productivity usually.
sure. And correct, tell me if I'm wrong, but also, you've mentioned, the productivity side and for the employees' well-being. But what about to save them essentially from paying out settlements in
Yeah,
lawsuits. I
exactly.
can't tell you how many. I mean, just look in the news. Settled for $35 million. Thanks,
Yeah,
Fox News.
yeah.
But would Fox News be your first customer, by the way?
No, they would not be our first
All right,
customer.
all right.
But you're
They
completely
probably don't
right.
want it. They probably don't want it. They probably, yeah.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, perhaps if we come to the US, but currently we're concentrating on the European market and Southern European market. But definitely reputational damage is another important thing. And we're seeing ourselves as being preventative in that regard, in the sense where we can avoid companies having to give out these huge amount of money because they have a system in place in which, hopefully cases shouldn't have escalated to that point, because reasons that settlements are paid aren't because the sexual harassment necessarily occurred, but because of how poorly it was dealt with afterwards.
100%, right, and the damage that it caused, how long it's gone on for, essentially.
Yeah,
Well, besides for productivity, which is in itself $1.4 billion a year is huge, but
yeah,
to stop lawsuits from happening, which could be in the tens of millions of dollars, even if
yeah,
you just hit one of them, which is crazy.
yeah.
So as far as it goes for now, is it really just about, like, what stage of the game are you guys in? Are you still in the very beginning where you still have to develop the technology? How old is the company?
So the company was registered early on this year, so we're very, very early stage. But fortunately for us, we are mostly a technical team. So I'm a data analyst, a machine learning engineer. My co-founder is cybersecurity analyst. We have a software developer and then a quantitative researcher. So it means that for us, the product side is actually very, very simple because it's what is our bread and butter. Um, and so as we finish developing the project, this is when we're acquiring our first customers.
I can't even spell quantitative analysis. So that's unbelievable. First of all, it's also very rare that such a technical person is also, you can say you're the face of the company. You're on my show right now. So, like, most my twin brother is a data analyst.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say he's super comfortable coming on the air and talking about anything. You are. So was there a learning curve as far as that goes? Because even the greatest leaders, Bill Gates, for example, he was not comfortable getting in front of people to talk about essentially anything, but he had to learn how to do it. Was that something you had to work on, or you're always just naturally that good?
I think perhaps because well, in my previous life, when I was studying my bachelor's, I studied politics. So that did definitely help. It was all about presenting and how to try to get people to be under your influence and how to gain people's votes. So that definitely did help. But I think what you mentioned about like technical people not being very good at presenting necessarily. What's interesting for us is that we're a completely technical team, and we're also only women. So there's four of us in the team currently, and it's very unusual for a startup just to have women in it, and let alone a technical women. And we've had comments before about asking us if we should integrate a man into the team because we're missing like a technical man. So I would say that's probably been another one of our challenges is actually the perception of individuals of what a startup looks like, and usually it tends to be four young white men coming straight out of university who are really, really technical and perhaps actually can't speak. Whilst us, it's not at all like that. We're four technical women. All of us are very extroverted. We all love to present. We all love to present Metaspace. So yeah, it's definitely one of the challenges that we're currently facing.
Wow. So you're not the only one who can present. Apparently, everyone can present.
Yeah.
So were they? How did you meet your co-founders? Were they all in the same political science courses that you were taking, essentially?
So my co-founder was, yeah, so that's how we met, and we worked together throughout all of those years afterwards. So for us, it was very, very easy to actually found a company because we were able to communicate so easily together, and it was just really second nature to us. Then we met our quantitative researcher. like through LinkedIn. She loved what we were doing and wanted to help, so she actually came on board as our first ambassador. So we have an ambassador program that has now reached over 50 ambassadors, which is just absolutely incredible.
Wow.
And yeah, but she now is working with us full time. And then a software developer, I met her at a party. So we were actually looking to hire developers, and we'd done loads of interviews, and we just hadn't found the right fit yet. And she walked up to me at a party and just said, "Hi, my name is Nora and I'm a software developer." So, she definitely fell from the heavens to be working with us.
Wow. So if anyone wants to work at Metaspace, all they have to do is find the
Yeah.
next party you're going to and tell them that you're a software developer.
Yeah,
Pretty
exactly.
simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So from just finishing off from a business standpoint, because at the end of the day, this is a business.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if I can get into pricing per se. Like, how do you even price something like this?
Mhm.
But I don't know. Is that something we can even cover, or it's way too early?
Definitely. No, definitely. So we're looking to offer companies different packages. So for example, just the reporting system alone would be at a certain price depending on the size of the company. And then the reporting and the case resolution platform together would be the second package. And the third package would be all of our products together. So reporting, case resolution, and natural language processing.
Okay. And so, how big do you think this can get? I mean, for if you were to ask me, I think this is a billion-dollar idea easily. Do you also feel the same way?
Yeah, and I think because of like we just see the need for it. And obviously for us, what's most important is the positive social impact that we can create. And as we become more profitable and we acquire more customers, the more impact we were able. So it's very scalable in that regard. So for us, obviously, like the economic benefit, we're a for-profit social enterprise, does come second, as we're really interested in helping the individuals who are currently experiencing sexual harassment and giving them a voice.
Definitely 100%. I know, and I'm technically a part of a entire group that literally just on LinkedIn, it's called Decide to Be Kind, and
Hmm.
it's to fight sexual harassment, general harassment, just on LinkedIn. Because
Yeah,
if something, someone reports something, you report it, nothing happens. Mike, I don't know where
yeah,
Bill Gates is. I mean, he doesn't have to deal with this. He's dealing with
yeah.
other things, but nothing, nobody does anything. So it's amazing to see that the future is in the hands of Eleanor Manley, and I'm very confident in your abilities to get this done and really make a difference in
Thank
this world.
you.
So it's really
Thanks
incredible,
so
and
much.
so absolutely, I really appreciate you coming on. Was there anything maybe we didn't cover you'd like to share with anybody?
No, just as I mentioned, we do have an ambassador program. So anyone who wants to join us, we accept absolutely anyone who's also passionate about speaking up about sexual harassment, perhaps for yourself or perhaps for someone else, perhaps in your workplace or in your personal life. So if you are interested in joining us, please feel free to reach out.
Yes, and I will leave a link down below for ways to contact you. And so just one more thing, just because you are an entrepreneur, because you kind of went out on your own essentially, what message would you give an aspiring entrepreneur that if he
Or
wants to start his own business?
Gosh, that's a hard one, but I think one of the best advice that we've received has been no one's going to believe in you as much as you can. So you've got to be confident about what you're offering, about your product, because if you can't sell it, then no one else will.
That's great. Anyways, for those who want to reach out to Eleanor, I'll put links down below. I just really appreciate you coming on and sharing what you're doing with Metaspace, and I fully back. I'm really really excited to see what the future holds for you guys.
Thank you, as am I. I'm very excited about the future too.
All right, there we go.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.